copy of what I'm looking at on my screen. I'll send that either way to you, so you can write your answers down on paper, or you can try to submit your answers online. But please keep in mind, this is not a test grade. I created this test as a way for us to work through some problems without me having to try to make up a bunch on my own. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the problem, then I'm going to show you how to work out the problem. So it would be in your best interest to try to pause the video throughout to see if you can come up with the answer or do the work on your own before I reveal what the answer is. Because if you're just listening and copying and getting all the answers, it does you no good. Because like I said, it's not for a grade anyway. It's just to help you understand how to do it. Because eventually we will find a way to grade you on it. Hopefully it'll be back in the classroom and we're all taking the test like normal, because that means everything's back to normal. But for now, let's just talk through these problems. So the first one says the school cafeteria paid 96 cents for 12 packages of crackers. How much did each package cost? Okay, so the first situation or first common problem is students are not putting the numbers in the correct spot. So we're either going to be splitting up this 96 cents or we're going to be splitting up the 12 packages. Well, it looks like they're asking how much did each package cost. So we are looking for a money answer, which tells me, well, that means we must be splitting up the money. Because if we split up the crackers, then we're going to be left with a number that pertains to crackers. So what we're going to do is we're going to say 96 cents, and we're going to divide that by 12, and that should give us how much each cracker individually would have cost, or I should say each package of crackers cost. So I'm trying something new. It's called the ALL board, and I'm sure the AWW stands for something else. So because I left all my dry erase boards at school, so I'm going to be experimenting with this. So we said it was 96 cents divided by 12. Okay, so that should look like, let's do this right here. We want to change that color because purple is my favorite. So if we got to do it, let's do it fun, right? Okay, we're on the pencil tool. So we're going to make my little division bar here. And we have 96 cents. Ooh. Again, please no judgment here, because it's not the easiest thing to draw. Ooh, that 9 looks horrible. Okay, 96 cents. Definitely want the audio on because it might not be easy to read what I wrote, but that's supposed to be a 96. Okay, and we are dividing that by 12. And that should tell us, whoop, that's supposed to be a 2. That's horrible. Let me fix that. Okay, we're going to just use the eraser. Fix that too. Let me try doing this. Maybe that's better. Okay. Sorry. We're going to go back to, there we go. That's a little better. So we have 96. Now when you have a decimal divided by a whole number, so that means the decimal's on the inside, you just simply raise the decimal up first. That way you'll know where the decimal's supposed to go. And then I can just treat this like 12 into 96, and it'll be a lot easier. Of course, 12 can't go into 0. There's no need to put a 0 there. You can if you want, if it helps you, but I'm not going to. It's not necessary. And then 12 still won't even go into 9. So I do have to put the 0 here because it's right after the decimal, and I'm hypothesizing that I'm going to have a digit here that's not a 0. So if I don't put the 0 here, my number's going to be weird. Okay? And then if you're thinking about the situation, that does make sense. If they paid less than $1 for 12 packages, then I can safely assume that the packages are going to be like less than a dime each, but we'll see what happens. Okay? Then we think, how many times can 12 go into 96? This is where practicing that extra math really comes in handy, because you got to know your multiplication facts. Right off the bat, I start thinking about what times 2 gives me a 6. Well, let's see, that would be a 3. Maybe. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 1 is 3. That's not going to be enough. Let's try 8, because 8 times 2 is 16, right? So if I did that, I would put 6 down, carry my 1. Oh, that's perfect. So I'm going to put an 8. 8 times 2 is 16. I put my 6 here, and I carry the little 1. 8 times 1 is 8, but I have to add what I carried, or regrouped is the term, and that makes it a perfect 96. I subtract. Nothing left over, which is wonderful, because we don't want remainders when dealing with money, because if you have remainders dealing with money, then something's off. So this tells me that it's 8 cents per package. Okay, you should also double check your work. Okay, 8 cents. I'm going to multiply by 12 to make sure I get 96. 8 times 2 is 16. 6 down, carry my 1. Okay, 8 times 1 is 8. Plus 1 more is 96. Then technically I would have to multiply everything by 0, but since 0 times anything is 0, there's no need to go through all of that. It's just extra work for no reason. So now I go back and count my decimal spaces. Looks like I have hundredths up here, so that means 1, 2. This is a whole number with no decimals, so that just means I need 2 numbers after my decimal. Boom, 96 cents, which is what I had up there, which is how I know this is correct. So when I look back at my actual test, hopefully we will see 8 cents as a choice, and it is A. Ding, ding, ding. So A is the correct answer for number 1. Okay, let's try number 2. Number 2 is good, gives me, I don't think on your EOG, which, by the way, there is discussion, not passed yet, but just something to keep in mind. I heard there is a discussion that they are considering waiving state testing. So don't quote me on that. Not been made an actual thing yet. They're still voting on it and discussing what we're going to do instead, that kind of thing. But all that aside, whether we actually have an EOG or not, my guess is they're not going to have very many questions worded like this one, where it just says, what is 16 divided by 200ths? Most of the time, it'll be a situation like number 1 or number 2. But we'll go ahead and try this one out. What is 16 divided by 200ths? Okay, so I'm going to look for a clear the board option. I think it means I can just do that. Maybe not. Let's close the ad, if I can. Oh, nope. Okay, so we are going to delete this whole thing. Yes, we want to clear that page because it's got a new problem. All right, so let's look at it one more time. What is 16 divided by 200ths? Again, make sure you're putting your numbers in the right space. We want 16 divided by 200ths. This is great because now we get to see what happens when you have a decimal on the outside of the garage, so to speak, or we are dividing by a decimal number. First thing I want to do is, if this is a decimal, I want to make this number a decimal. Very similar to when you're adding and subtracting fractions, you want to make sure that your denominators are the same. So it's kind of that idea. If I got decimals here, I want decimals here, just so it's a little easy to work with. Because the next thing is, when you have a decimal on the outside, you're going to try to move it so you have a whole number. So I have 1, 2. I have to move my decimal 2 spots to make it a whole number. So that means I got to move this decimal 2 spots, which you'll see in the end it doesn't really matter. 1, 2. There's nothing there, so a placeholder, I'm going to draw in another 0. Okay? So that means my new decimal would be here. So that kind of makes me think, I bet my answer is going to actually be a whole number, but let's see what happens. So now here the 0 doesn't really matter anymore because I moved my decimal, right? So now it's like I'm saying 2 into 1600. So 2 won't go into 1, but 2 will go into 16. We just did a problem with that. How many times? Hopefully you said 8, because 8 times 2 is 16. Subtract. And then bring down. Okay. Well, then 2 won't go 0. You know what? We've got zeros everywhere else. So to save myself some time and paper, I can clearly see that all I have left to bring down is zeros. I'm going to be dividing by 0, and just like multiplying by 0, the answer is going to be 0. Because 0 times anything is 0. 0 divided by anything, 0. Okay? So kind of think of it like this. If I got a nice cake and I want to divide that by nobody but myself, then I don't have to actually divide it. I can eat the whole thing, right? So that's why I can just throw in my zeros there. So that tells me that I have 800. So when I go back to look at my original problem, boom, there it is, 800. So what is 16 divided by 2 hundredths? It is 800. Okay? So just to double check your work, you can go back in and multiply that, 800. And remember, we moved the decimal actually, right? So 2, that would give us 1600, right? Okay, so we said 16 divided by 2 hundredths is really 8 hundredths. So yes, it should be D. Okay? Again, you can go back and rewind, stop, pause, whatever, because the rest of these I want you to try on your own for today. It looks like we have some models too, so see if you can think about how that would be done. If you have questions on it, because we have done these before, please don't forget to post a comment. Hey, can you show me how to model question number whatever? Okay, and I will wait to hear back from you because I don't want to keep modeling them all for you when you may not need me to do that. So I modeled the first 2, and then you can always come back and, like I said, ask me to model any of the others, and I will do that for you, just like I did here with my all board, and I will repost a video of the other questions modeled for those that wanted to be modeled. Okay, so again, this will be posted with the online code, the way you do that. Of course, mine looks a little different than yours, but when you log in, you get a screen that looks like this. Okay, actually, you don't get that one. You get, I think, you get this one. So again, mine looks a lot different than yours, but you'll have something. You won't see SchoolNet. You'll see something called NCED Cloud, or it says Home Base. You'll click on that, and it gives you a different one. Similar apps. Again, my apps are different than yours because I'm the teacher. But the next thing you'll look for is SchoolNet. When you do that, it'll take you to the home screen. Again, mine looks different. Mine says, "Welcome back, Joseph." Yours will say, "Welcome back, whatever your name is." And then kind of where I have this here, you'll have something that lets you put in a code for online test code, and you'll enter the code that